December 4th, 2000, Denali Wilderness, Alaska. Grace Elizabeth Winters, 68 years old, sat alone in her cabin 47 miles from the nearest town. This would be her fourth Christmas since her son vanished into these mountains. Outside, the temperature had dropped to 45 below zero. The weather radio crackled warnings about a Category 5 blizzard approaching the worst in a decade. Grace was pouring her evening bourbon when she heard a sound caught between a wolf's howl and a human scream, piercing through the wind. 3 days later, the white wolf Grace had carried 2 miles through that deadly storm lay on her living room floor. Around the animal's neck was a GPS collar, and on that collar, written in her dead son's handwriting, were 4 words that changed everything. This wasn't rescue. This was destiny. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Along with the city you're watching, from now, let's continue with the story. Grace Elizabeth Winters stood 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 130 pounds, soaking wet. At 68, her silver hair was pulled back in a practical bun, always slightly disheveled from the Alaskan wind. Her frost-blue eyes had witnessed too much first in the jungles of Southeast Asia, then in the slow disintegration of everyone she'd ever loved. The navy wool scarf wrapped around her neck had belonged to her husband. 34 years she'd worn it, and still, on certain mornings, she swore she could smell his Old Spice cologne buried somewhere in the threads. Grace lived on $1,200 a month from Social Security. The cabin she occupied had belonged to her son, Sam, though she'd only discovered this 4 years ago when she finally opened his will. By then, he'd been missing long enough that the lawyers declared him legally dead. The medical debt collection notices arrived every week now. $94,000 total Bobby's final hospitalization. Sam's funeral expenses, the 3-month search operation that had found nothing. The foreclosure notice had given her 30 days. That was 2 days ago. She had 4 weeks to vacate the only place where she still felt close to Sam. The cancer diagnosis had come 6 months earlier, stage 3 lung cancer. The doctor said treatment might buy her a year. Grace had looked at the treatment cost $200,000 and walked out of the office. She had 30 pills left in the bottle on her nightstand, 1 month of pain management. After that, nature would take its course. Grace had been 20 years old when the government recruited her from nursing school. They'd called it special medical training. What they'd meant was learning to patch bullet wounds in the jungle, to perform field amputations with whatever tools were available, to extract information from prisoners when necessary. Laos, 1970. Officially, American forces weren't there. Officially, Grace Winters had never existed. The village operation haunted her still. 47 civilians, men, women, children. Orders were orders. They'd told her. Viet Cong sympathizers. They'd said Grace had followed those orders. She'd also pulled the trigger. Colonel Robert Bobby Winters had been a Marine with his own demons. They'd met at a VA hospital in 1972, 2 broken soldiers who understood what it meant to carry the weight of the dead. They married within 6 months. For 13 years, Grace managed Bobby's nightmares, his drinking, his violent episodes. December 24th, 1984. Bobby found Grace's classified files she'd hidden in a locked box in the attic. He'd read about Laos, about the village, about the 47 names. Grace whispered in her sleep, "I can't live with what I know." Bobby had told her, "And I can't die a coward." He'd asked her to help him, begged her, really. When he'd threatened to hurt their 10-year-old son first, Grace had made her choice. One gunshot, quick, merciful. Sam had heard it from his bedroom. The official report said suicide. Grace knew better. December 21st, 9:47 p.m. Grace sat at her small kitchen table, the weather radio crackling beside her. Category 5, a blizzard approaching, temperature dropping to 58 below with wind chill. Whiteout conditions expected by midnight. Remain indoors. She poured 2 fingers of bourbon into Bobby's old glass. 34 years ago today, she'd held the gun. 34 years. And the anniversary never got easier. Grace raised the glass to Bobby's photograph on the mantel. Still mad at me? Bobby, get in line. The first howl came at 9:40, distant, weak. Grace ignored it. Wild wolves were common enough in Denali. The second howl came at 9:50, closer now, and different, not the territorial call of a healthy animal. This was desperate, pleading. The third howl, at 9:58, made Grace stand up. It was very close, maybe 200 yards, and mixed with something that sounded almost like a whimper. Grace had heard enough dying sounds in Vietnam to recognize one now. She looked at Sam's photograph beside Bobby's. Her son at 25, grinning, holding some research equipment she'd never understood. What would you do, baby? Sam would go. Sam had always gone toward suffering, never away from it. Grace pulled on Bobby's old coat, the one that still smelled faintly of him after all these years. She packed her medical kit, the one from Vietnam, updated over the years but still containing the same battered surgical scissors. She added flares, rope, a hunting knife. At the door, she paused. The wind was already howling, rattling the windows. Grace pulled out a piece of paper and wrote, "To whoever finds this, I chose this. Tell Sam's grave I tried, das G. She wrapped the navy scarf twice around her face and unlocked the door. The wind hit her like a physical blow, nearly knocking her backward. Snow stung her face, even through the scarf. Visibility was less than 10 feet. The howl came again. Grace followed it. The first 100 yards were hell. Wind gusts of 60 miles per hour battered her 130-pound frame. Grace's arthritic hands cramped inside her gloves. The old shrapnel wound in her left thigh, a gift from Laos, burned with each step. She fell twice. The first time, she dropped her flashlight and spent 3 minutes of pure panic searching through the snow before her fingers finally closed around it. The second time, she went down hard over a hidden log, her breath knocked out of her lungs. This is how I die, Grace thought, lying in the frozen like a fool. But then she thought of Sam, somewhere out in these mountains. Had he died alone? Had he called for help with no one to hear? Grace forced herself up. If Sam died out here alone, I won't let another creature die alone. At 250 yards from the cabin, Grace almost walked right past it. White snow, white wolf perfect camouflage. She saw the blood first, dark red against pristine white. A trail leading 15 feet to a large pine tree. Behind the tree was the wolf, pure white, every inch of her. An Arctic wolf, though they weren't native to this region. She was large, maybe 100 pounds, but emaciated. Ribs visible through her fur. Her right hind leg was caught in a leg-hold trap, the kind that had been banned in Alaska years ago, but still circulated on the black market. The trap had been there at least a day. Bone was visible through torn flesh. Blood had frozen to the wolf's fur in dark patches. But what made Grace's breath catch were the three small Pumas Pastelraps huddled against the wolf's snout, puppies. Two gray-white, one pure white like its mother, 2 to 3 months old, starving, shivering. One of them, the smallest, wasn't moving. The wolf's yellow-gold eyes locked on Grace. They held no aggression, just intelligence. And something that looked terribly like a plea. Grace's medical training kicked in. The wolf had been trapped minimum 24 hours. Tissue necrosis was starting. Blood loss was significant, but not immediately fatal. Hypothermia was advanced. The animal was shivering violently. Then Grace towed us the collar. Faded blue leather, weathered but intact, research grade. She wiped snow from the metal tag dangling from it. Handwritten in permanent marker, in block letters Grace would recognize anywhere, were 4 words, "Ghost do not harm." Sam's handwriting. Grace's hand trembled as she traced the letters. Sam, is this? She looked into the wolf's eyes again. The animal held her gaze steadily, without fear, without aggression, just understanding. "He sent you to me, didn't he?" Grace assessed the situation with brutal honesty. She couldn't save all 4. If she saved the wolf, the puppies would die. If she saved the puppies, they'd die anyway without their mother's milk. If she saved none and went home, she'd be safe and warm. Or she could try to save them all and probably kill everyone, including herself. The wolf made a sound, not a growl, not a whimper, something in between. A plea in a language Grace couldn't speak but somehow understood. "We all go, or we all stay, sure," Grace said. She approached slowly. Hands visible. "Easy, girl. I'm here to help." The wolf tensed, but didn't growl. Grace spoke softly, moving toward the trap. I know it hurts, but I promise, I'm not your enemy." Opening the trap required the 2 hands and 40 pounds of pressure. The wolf could easily bite her. Grace pulled jerky from her pocket. She always carried some and offered it. The wolf sniffed, hesitated, then took the food. A moment of trust. "Okay, this is going to hurt. I'm sorry." Grace counted down. 3, 2, 1. She released the trap. The spring snapped open with a metallic sound. The wolf yowled, a sound that pierced Grace's heart. Grace caught the trap before it could fall and injure the wolf further. Evidence. She'd keep it. The leg was mangled. Grace poured antiseptic. The wolf jerked but didn't bite. She wrapped the wound with her entire roll of gauze, then splintered it with 2 sticks and rope. "Field medicine," Grace muttered. "Welcome to Vietnam, Ghost." Now came the impossible part. The wolf couldn't walk. The puppies couldn't walk 250 yards through deep snow. Grace was 68, weakened by cancer, exhausted from the hike out. She looked at Ghost. "You're going to have to trust me, and I haven't been trustworthy in a long time." Grace tried to lift Ghost and failed. Her back spasmed, an old injury from carrying wounded soldiers in the jungle. She dropped the wolf, who yelped in pain. Grace fell into the snow beside her, crying. "I can't. I'm too old. I'm too weak. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry." She lay there and in the snow, thinking how easy it would be to just close her eyes, let the cold take her, end it all here. Then the smallest puppy stopped breathing. Grace watched as Ghost frantically licked the puppy, trying to revive it. The mother's desperation was palpable. The wolf whimpered, nudged, licked harder, a mother fighting till the very end. "Get up, soldier," Grace told herself. "On your feet." She stood, shaking. She pulled out a rope and created a makeshift harness around Ghost's chest, tying it to her own torso. The weight would distribute across her shoulders and hips instead of just her back. Grace opened her coat and tucked the 2 living puppies against her chest. They were cold, so cold. The dead one she wrapped in a towel. No time to mourn now. She lifted. The harness worked. Ghost's weight pulled against Grace's whole body instead of just her arms. It was still more than 100 pounds she had no business carrying, but it was possible. Grace took the first step. Her knee nearly buckled. The second step held. "We're going home, girl," Grace whispered. "We're going home." The first 50 yards, adrenaline carried her. Steps 1 through 10 felt almost manageable. Steps 11 through 20, her legs began burning. Steps 21 through 30, her vision blurred. At step 35, her right knee buckled, the same knee she'd injured jumping from a helicopter in 1970. Grace crashed forward, twisting to protect the puppies in her coat. She landed hard on her side. Ghost yelped. Grace lay in the snow, gasping. Just 5 minutes, just rest 5 minutes. But she couldn't rest. Wind chill would kill them all in minutes. A memory hit her. Vietnam, 70. Carrying a wounded soldier through the jungle, running from enemy fire. The soldier had bled out before they reached the medevac. Grace had carried a dead man for 2 miles. "Not this time," Grace muttered. "Not this time." At the 100-yard mark, Grace was hallucinating. She saw the cabin ahead, but no, that was just her desperate mind playing tricks. She still had 150 yards to go. She heard Bobby's voice. "Grace, stop. You've done enough." She heard Keppel's voice. "Mom, keep going. You're close." "I'm losing it," Grace said aloud. "Talking to ghosts? Fitting." At 175 yards, the rope harness loosened. Grace's frozen hands couldn't feel it happening. Ghost slipped off her back. Grace took 5 more steps before she realized. She turned. Ghost lay in the snow, 15 feet behind her. "No!" Grace screamed. "Get up, get up." She crawled back, too exhausted to walk. Her hands fumbled with the rope, taking 10 minutes to retighten it with frozen fingers that barely worked. The final 75 yards broke her. Grace saw lights in the cabin windows, Christmas lights she knew she hadn't turned on in years. She saw Sam in one window, waving. She saw Bobby on the porch, smoking one of his cigars. Not real, Grace told herself, but she walked toward the vision anyway. "If I'm dying, at least I'll die seeing you both." She reached the porch steps and couldn't lift her leg to climb. Grace crawled up and on her knees, Ghost dragging behind her on the harness. Go. At the door, she fumbled for keys with hands that no longer had feeling. She dropped the keys twice. Finally, the door opened. Grace fell inside, pulling Ghost after her. She kicked the door shut with her last bit of strength. Grace lay on the floor, Ghost beside her, 2 puppies crawling out of her coat. Her last conscious thought was, "We made it, Sam. We made it." Then everything went black. 3 hours later, Grace woke on the floor, soaked from melted snow. Her core temperature was dangerously low. She knew the symptoms. Her fingers were blue-purple, stage 2 frostbite, maybe stage 3. Ghost lay unconscious beside her, breathing shallow. The 2 puppies huddled against their mother. The 3rd puppy, the smallest, was confirmed dead now. Grace crawled to the fireplace. She couldn't stand yet. The fireplace was cold, hadn't been used in months. The kindling was damp. Her hands couldn't grip matches properly. 6 matches fell. 6 failures. The 7th caught. Grace built the fire slowly, taking 20 minutes. When it finally caught and held, she almost cried from relief. Next, Ghost's leg. The infection was starting, red streaks spreading from the wound, swelling. Grace needed antibiotics, but she only had human medications. She crushed amoxicillin pills from her own prescription into water and forced it into Ghost's mouth. Then she cleaned the wound again, using the last of her antiseptic. She stitched the leg 14 stitches with fishing line because she had no proper sutures, no anesthetic. Ghost was unconscious, which was a blessing. If the wolf had been awake, she'd have bitten. The 2 living puppies needed food. Their mother was unconscious, couldn't nurse. Grace warmed goat milk and soaked a cloth in it, letting the puppies suckle. They took the milk eagerly. Good sign. But one puppy, the white one, was very weak, barely sucking. The gray one was stronger, more vigorous. Grace wrapped the dead puppy in a towel. The ground was too frozen to bury it. She placed the small body in the fireplace. "Lord, take this little one," Grace whispered. She didn't get a chance, but she was loved. She watched the body burn, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I tried so hard." At 3:47, Ghost's eyes opened. The wolf looked directly at Grace. Grace froze. Wild animal, unpredictable, dangerous. But Ghost showed no aggression. She looked at her puppies, then back at Grace. Her tail gave one slight wag. Understanding passed between them. Something without words. "You're welcome," Grace said. Morning came. December 22nd, 7:15 a.m. Grace woke on the floor where she'd fallen asleep by the fire. Ghost was awake, eyes open, watching her. The 2 puppies were nursing. Ghost was conscious enough to feed them. Everyone had survived the night. Grace examined the GPS collar more closely in daylight. Wildtrak Pro brand, professional research grade, battery life 4 to 5 years. Sam had disappeared 4 years ago. The collar would still be powered. The ID tag confirmed Sam's handwriting. The date read 5/2/20, the day before Sam's last radio contact. There was also a code, JC47. Grace didn't recognize it. Then she noticed something, a small waterproof compartment in the collar. Hidden. You'd have to know where to press. Grace pressed. The compartment opened. Inside was a micro USB drive, sealed in plastic. Grace's hands shook as she retrieved Sam's old laptop from the closet. She'd kept it, unable to throw away anything of his. The battery was dead. She charged it for 20 minutes, her heart pounding. The USB drive contained one video file, "For Mom Play If I'm Gone," MP4. Recorded date, May 3rd, 2015, the day Sam vanished. Grace clicked play. Sam's face filled the screen. "Mom, if you're watching this, I'm probably dead." Grace gasped, paused the video, and sobbed. Her hand hovered over the screen, trembling. After a long moment, she pressed play again. Sam continued, "I found something big. An illegal wolf trafficking operation. A man named Jackson Crowley, local hunter, runs an underground trade. He's selling wolves to exotic collectors for $50,000 to $200,000 each. Ghost is his target. A white Arctic wolf is the highest value prize." Sam held up a small camera. "I've been documenting everything. I attached a mini camera to Ghost's collar. She's been filming his operation." The video cut to shaky footage from Ghost's perspective, low angle, moving through forest. The scene showed a clearing at night. Two men talking, their faces partially visible. "How many this month?" one asked. 12 wolves. 340,000 gross. Chinese buyer wants more. What about witnesses? The camera panned. Grace saw the man's face clearly now. Bearded, red-brown, maybe late 40s. Jackson Crowley. Wildlife biologist was snooping. Samuel Winters. Take care of it, quietly. Already on it. He's tracking the white wolf today. We'll make it look like an accident. The video cut back to Sam's face. His eyes were wet with tears. "Mom, by the time you see this, they might have found me. I'm scared, but I can't let them kill Ghost. She's pregnant, about 8 weeks now, due in roughly a month from this recording." Sam's voice broke. "If I don't make it, protect her. Protect her pups. Use this footage. Bring Jack down. Get justice. Mom, I love you. I'm sorry for being distant after Dad died. I know you carry guilt. Let it go. What happened to Dad wasn't your fault. What happens to me that isn't your fault either? I chose this. Protect Ghost. I love you. Always." The screen went black. Grace sat in silence for 5 minutes. Then she screamed a sound of pure rage and grief and anguish. She grabbed the nearest object, a coffee mug, and smashed it against the wall. She fell to her knees, sobbing. "They killed you. They killed my baby." Ghost, despite her injured leg, limped over. The wolf placed her head in Grace's lap. Grace wrapped her arms around Ghost and held on. "He died for you," Grace whispered. "He died protecting you." She looked into Ghost's yellow eyes. "You're not just a wolf. You're his legacy." Grace's grief hardened into something else, something cold and sharp. Jackson Crowley, "I'm coming for you." At 10 a.m., Sarah Chen arrived for her weekly supply run. Sarah was 55, Chinese-American, practical and kind. She'd been the only person Grace had spoken to regularly since Sam disappeared. Sarah knocked. "Grace, you alive in there?" Grace opened the door. She looked terrible, frostbite bandages on her fingers, exhaustion carved into her face. "Jesus! Grace!" "What happened?" "Come in. I need to show you something." Sarah entered, carrying groceries and mail. "I brought you—" She stopped. Ghost lay on the floor in the living room. "Grace, there's a wolf in your house. Her name is Ghost. You've lost your mind." "Found it. Actually." Sarah backed toward the door. "Grace, this is illegal. Fish and Wildlife will arrest you." "Let them try." "Grace, you're 68. You have cancer. You're broke. This wolf will destroy what's left of your life." "What life?" Grace's voice was sharp. "I've been dead since Bobby pulled that trigger, since Sam vanished. At least now I'm fighting." "Fighting for what?" "Justice, purpose, maybe redemption." Grace showed Sarah the video. Sarah watched in silence. Tears forming. "Oh, Grace, oh my God, will you help me?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "My husband died looking for Sam. Rangers said it was a heart attack. Age 49, completely healthy. John called me that day. I said he'd found something important about Sam's disappearance. He died that night." Grace felt ice in her stomach. "Jack killed him too." "I always wondered." Sarah wiped her eyes. "You want Jack, I'm in. What do you need?" "Time, supplies, and talents." The mail Sarah brought contained 3 envelopes. Bank foreclosure notice. Final 30 days to vacate. Property tax bill, $32,000 overdue. Medical debt collection, $94,000 or lawsuit. Grace's total debt, $126,000. Her assets, a cabin that wasn't even hers, $340 in savings, and an old truck. Grace, come stay with me, Sarah offered. You don't have to do this alone. I can't leave. Sam is here. Ghost is here. I finally have purpose. Over the next 2 days, Grace cared for Ghost. Every 4 hours, she checked the wound. The antibiotics were working. Swelling decreased. Red streaks faded. Yes, Grace cleaned and rebandaged. It was painful. Ghost growled, but never snapped. By day 2, Ghost could put slight weight on the leg. The 2 puppies thrived. Grace named them. The gray one larger, Curious. Confident she called Hope. The white one smaller, timid, but intelligent, she named Faith. Faith had a birth defect. Her left rear leg was slightly shorter, giving her a permanent limp. But Faith watched everything, learned fast. When Grace opened the back door, Faith studied how the latch worked. On the night of December 22nd, Grace woke to find Faith curled against her chest. The puppy had crawled from Ghost's side to Grace's sleeping bag. Ghost watched calmly, trusting Grace with her baby. Grace held the warm bundle and cried. Haven't held something this innocent since Sam was a baby. The next morning, Ghost limped to Grace while she made coffee. The wolf sat beside her chair, no longer afraid, no longer wild. Grace tentatively reached out and petted Ghost's head. The wolf leaned into the touch. We're going to get him, girl, Grace said. Jack Crowley is going to pay. Grace reviewed all footage from Ghost's collar camera, hours of video. The footage showed Jack's entire operation, 12 wolves captured over 6 months, meetings with buyers, cash exchanges of $340,000. The location, an abandoned mining facility 15 miles north. One clip made Grace's blood run cold. Sam confronting Jack. I've documented everything. Turn yourself in. You're a fool, kid. A gunshot. Off camera. Sam's scream. The camera jostled as Ghost ran. Grace watched it 3 times. Then she contacted the one person she thought might help her, James Russell, wildlife biologist, Sam's former colleague and mentor. James arrived that evening. He was 45, graying at the temples, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. When he saw Ghost, he stopped dead. My God, that's an Arctic wolf in Alaska's interior. Grace explained everything, showed him the video. James went pale. Jack killed Sam. Yes, and you have the evidence. Yes, but you can't show police without revealing Ghost. Exactly. James examined Ghost thoroughly. She's remarkable, exceptionally intelligent. She's learned commands in 2 days. Her temperament is unusually calm around humans. Size indicates she's about 7 or 8 years old. Then James examined the puppies. He frowned. Grace, may I take blood samples? I need to test something. Why? Just a hunch. James used a portable field analyzer. 15 minutes later, he stared at the screen in silence. What is it? Grace, these puppies aren't pure wolf. They're hybrids. About 65% wolf, 35% domestic dog, based on genetic markers, likely Siberian Husky or Malamute. Grace's heart stopped. Sam had a husky. Max died with Sam, right? They found Max's collar, never found his body. If Ghost and Max bonded before Sam died. James didn't finish. These puppies are Sam's legacy, Grace whispered. Ghost and Max's puppies. They sat in silence, processing. Grace, you need to know, wolf-dog hybrids are illegal in Alaska. If Fish and Wildlife finds out, they'll euthanize the pups. Probably Ghost, too. Over my dead body. That might be what it takes. At 9 p.m., headlights appeared outside. Grace's stomach dropped. A patrol car. She grabbed Ghost. Basement, now. Ghost limped downstairs with the puppies. Grace closed the basement door and answered the knock. Mrs. Winters, I'm Deputy Marcus Grant. May I come in? Do you have a warrant? No. Ma'am, welfare check. Someone reported unusual activity. I'm fine. Good night. Marcus glanced past her, saw blood-stained towels Grace had forgotten to hide. Mrs. Winters, are you injured? Cut my hand. It's fine. Mind if I look around? Yes, I mind. From the basement came a muffled howl. Marcus's eyes narrowed. What was that? Old generator makes noise. Mrs. Winters. Do you have a warrant, Deputy? No. Then good night. Marcus stood his ground. Grace, I know you're hiding something, and I need to tell you why I'm really here. Grace's hand moved toward the rifle behind the door. Did Sam ever mention me? Grace paused. You? Why would he? Because we were together, Sam and I. We were in a relationship for 3 years. Grace felt the world tilt. What? Marcus's eyes filled with tears. We met in 20 when I helped with his research permits. We fell in love. But this is rural Alaska, small town, conservative. We kept it secret. Sam was planning to come out when he got back from that 20th trip. He never came back. I never got to say goodbye, couldn't even grieve publicly. Everyone thinks we were just friends. Grace leaned against the doorframe. Sam was gay. Yes, you didn't know. He never told me. We weren't close after Bobby died. He wanted to tell you, was afraid you'd react badly. I wouldn't have. Grace's voice broke. God, Sam, why didn't you trust me? Marcus stepped closer. Grace, I know you have Ghost. Sarah told me, asked me to help. Are you going to arrest me? No, I'm going to help you. Why? Because Ghost was Sam's life's work. Sam was my life. If protecting Ghost honors Sam, that's what I'll do. He paused. But Grace, you need to know Fish and Wildlife is coming. Christmas Day. Anonymous tip about illegal wolf possession. Jack, probably. I can stall, but you have maybe 36 hours. To do what? Figure out how to save Ghost or say goodbye. Grace showed Marcus the video. He watched, his hands clenching into fists. I'm going to kill him. No, we get him legally. That's what Sam would want. Why play by rules when he doesn't? Because Sam believed in the law. Marcus reluctantly agreed. December 24th, 8 p.m. Grace, James, Sarah, and Marcus sat around the cabin table, planning. Suddenly Ghost whimpered sharp, pained. What's wrong? James stood. Ghost's water broke. Oh, God, James said. She's in labor. She's not due for another month, Grace said. Stress can induce premature labor after the trap, the trauma. Can she survive this? Honestly, I don't know. For the first hour, Ghost paced and whimpered. Contractions came every 10 minutes. By hour 2, they were 5 minutes apart. Ghost lay down, panting heavily. Grace held Ghost's head. "It's okay, girl. You've got this." James prepared towels, warm water, medical supplies. Hope and Faith watched from a corner, whimpering. At 10:47 p.m., the first puppy was born. Small, gray, not moving. "Stillborn?" James said. "Oh, no." Grace grabbed the puppy, rubbing it vigorously, a technique from Vietnam field hospitals. The puppy gasped, took its first breath. "There you go. Welcome to the world." James looked at her with awe. "You saved it." Between 11 p.m. and midnight, complications arose. The second puppy was breech coming backward. Ghost howled in agony. "I need to turn it," James said. He manually repositioned the puppy, a risky procedure. Ghost snapped at him a warning. "Ghost, let him help," Grace pleaded. Ghost stopped, trusted Grace. James successfully turned and delivered the puppy. It was alive, but weak. At midnight Christmas Day, the third puppy crowned, but Ghost was exhausted, couldn't push. "She's giving up," James said. "No." Grace moved to Ghost's eye level. "Ghost, you don't give up. You're a survivor. Push." Ghost looked at Grace, made one final, massive effort. The third puppy was born larger, white like Ghost, vigorous and healthy. 3 new puppies, total of 5 now. Counting Hope and Faith, Ghost lay exhausted but alive. "You did it, Mama," Grace whispered. Marcus checked his phone. "Grace, text from the station. Fish and Wildlife moved up their arrival. Dawn, 6 a.m. Grace looked at the clock. 12:15 a.m. "That's less than 6 hours. What do we do?" Grace's jaw set. "We fight." They had less than 6 hours to save Ghost. Grace, James, Sarah, and Marcus sat around the table at 12:30 a.m., exhausted and desperate. "Option 1, James said. "We surrender Ghost, call Fish and Wildlife, explain the situation, ask for mercy." "They'll kill her," Grace said. "And the pups? We don't know that." "Yes, we do," Marcus interrupted. "Regulations are crystal clear. Illegal wolf plus hybrids equals euthanasia. No exceptions." Option 1 was rejected. "What if we run," Sarah suggested. "Take Ghost to the Canadian border, release her there." "She just gave birth," Grace said. "She can't travel." "Then we wait a few days." Marcus shook his head. "Fish and Wildlife will be here in 6 hours. No time." Option 2 was rejected. "Hide Ghost," Marcus said. "Make it look like she escaped before authorities arrived." "They'll search the area," Grace countered. "Find tracks in the snow." "So we fake tracks leading away, make it look like she ran off days ago." "The newborns can't survive without Ghost for more than a few hours," James said. Option 3 was rejected. Grace stood. "There's only one option, I confess. Take full responsibility. Tell Fish and Wildlife I acted alone, kidnapped Ghost." "Grace, you'll go to prison," Sarah said. "I'm dying anyway. 6 months. Remember, I spent it in a cell or here, doesn't matter." "What about Ghost, Nuz?" Marcus asked. "I claim she escaped during the night. You all back my story. They won't believe you. They will if I'm convincing. I've lied to bigger authorities than Fish and Wildlife." James leaned forward. "Grace, even if you take the blame, they'll still hunt Ghost. Not if they think she's dead. Silence. What do you mean? Sarah asked. We fake ghost death. Show them a body. What body? The stillborn pup from 3 nights ago. I saved it, froze it. That's a pup, not an adult wolf. Fish and Wildlife only knows White Wolf reported could be a juvenile. It's our only shot. The plan was thin, almost transparent, but it was all they had. At 3:00 a.m., everything changed. Jackson Crowley couldn't wait. He'd been watching Grace's cabin from a ridge a mile away through binoculars. Too much activity, lights on at unusual hours, Sarah visiting with supplies. He suspected Grace was moving the wolf. I have to act now, Jack muttered. He loaded his rifle, called 2 associates. It's 3 a.m, Jack. I don't care. This is the White Wolf. We move now or lose her. At 3:15 a.m., Jack and his 2 men approached the cabin silently. Jack cut the power line. Inside, the cabin went dark. Power's out, Grace said. Marcus stood. That's not the storm. Someone cut it. Jack. Marcus pulled his service weapon. James grabbed a hunting rifle from Grace's rack. Sarah and Grace moved to cover positions. At 3:20 a.m., Jack positioned his men, one at the back door, one at the side window. Jack took the front. They were surrounded. Grace Winters. Jack's voice boomed through the night. Peace. I know you have my wolf. Grace crouched by the window. Stay quiet, she whispered to the others. I'm giving you one chance, Jack shouted. Send the wolf out. No one gets hurt, Grace shouted back. Go to hell, Jack. Wrong answer. A rifle shot shattered the front window. Glass exploded inward. Everyone dove for cover. Sarah screamed. Stay down, Grace yelled. The front door crashed open. Jack had kicked it in. He entered with his rifle raised, flashlight mounted on the barrel, cutting through the darkness. Where is she? Grace stood, unarmed, blocking the basement door where Ghost and the pups were hidden. You killed my son. He was in the way. He was protecting her, like I am. Jack's rifle didn't waver. Step aside, Grace, or I'll shoot you, too. You'll have to shoot me first. Marcus stepped from the shadows, his service weapon aimed at Jack. Drop it, Jack. I'm a law officer. Jack laughed a harsh, bitter sound. A crooked cop protecting criminals. That's rich. I'm not crooked. I'm doing what's right. Right. She's harboring an illegal animal worth $200,000. That's a felony. You're a murderer, Marcus said. Sam Winters, John Chen. How many others? Collateral damage. Necessary for the greater good. Grace's voice cut through the tension. Jack, why? Why are you doing this? Because a wolf killed my daughter. The rage in his voice made everyone freeze. Grace's tone softened. Jack, a wolf-dog hybrid killed Emma. Not a wild wolf, not Ghost. Doesn't matter. Jack's hands shook on the rifle. All wolves are killers. No, you're the killer. You've killed more wolves than that hybrid ever could. You became what you hate. Jack's finger was on the trigger, aimed at Grace's chest. His hands trembled. A memory flashed through his mind. Emma, at age 9, asking him, Daddy, why do people hurt animals? His voice cracked. I just wanted to protect people by killing innocent creatures. Grace took a step closer, unarmed, unafraid. You're not protecting anyone. You're feeding your guilt. For a moment, Jack wavered. The rifle barrel lowered slightly. Then one of Jack's associates entered through the back door, gun drawn. Jack, I've got your back. No, Jack, you're not taking this wolf. Jack turned. What? The man pulled out a badge. Special Agent Tom Rivera, FBI. I've been undercover in your operation for 6 months. Jack's face went white. Your FBI. Trafficking endangered species, murder of Samuel Winters, murder of John Chin. I've documented everything. Jack's rifle clattered to the floor. No, I was so close. Rivera cuffed him. You were never close, Jack. We've been building a case since 2010. You have the right to remain silent. Emma, Jack whispered, tears streaming down his face. Baby girl, I'm sorry. Daddy failed you. As Rivera led Jack away, Grace felt no triumph, only exhaustion. She turned to Rivera. How long have you known about Ghost? 3 months. We needed Jack to lead us to his entire network. You used her as bait. We protected her. Why do you think Jack never found her until now? We controlled when and where. You led him here. We needed him in the act, and we needed your testimony. Jack was taken away. For a moment, Grace allowed herself to hope they'd stopped Jack. Surely that meant at 6:00 a.m., Fish and Wildlife arrived. 2 officers, Lead Officer Daniels and Officer Park. They knocked on the already broken door. Daniels looked around at the damage. We're here about reported illegal wolf possession. Grace stepped forward. The report was false, made by Jackson Crowley, who's just been arrested by the FBI. That doesn't change our mandate. Ma'am, we still need to investigate. There's no wolf here. Then you won't mind if we search. The officers spent 20 minutes searching. They found wolf fur on the couch, blood in the bathroom, empty antibiotic bottles. Mrs. Winters, there's clear evidence of a large canine living here. I had a dog. She died 2 days ago. Buried her out back. What breed? Malamute mix. Show us the grave. Grace led them to the backyard where she'd buried the stillborn pup from 3 nights ago. Fresh snow covered the small mound. We'll need to exhume the body. You're going to dig up my dead dog. If it's a dog, you have nothing to hide. Grace's heart pounded as they dug. 10 minutes later, they uncovered the frozen puppy body. Daniels examined it. This is a wolf pup. That's a Malamute pup. They look similar. Officer Park ran a field DNA test. 15 minutes later, Canis lupus, wolf, confirmed. Daniels pulled out handcuffs. Grace Winters, you're under arrest for illegal possession of protected wildlife. He read her Miranda rights. Grace said nothing, accepting the cuffs with quiet dignity. Officers, I'm Deputy Grant, Marcus said. I can vouch for Mrs. Winters. Federal jurisdiction, Deputy. She's coming with us. As they led Grace toward their vehicle, a sound came from the basement. A puppy whimper. Daniels stopped. What was that? Nothing, Grace said quickly. Officer Park, check the basement. No. Grace started, but the cuffs held her. Park descended into the basement. 30 seconds of silence. Then, Sir, you need to see this. Daniels went down. Grace's heart sank. They found Ghost, Hope, Faith, and the 3 newborn pups. My God, Daniels breathed. It's a whole pack. Grace felt her world collapse. No, please. Daniels came back up, his expression grim. Mrs. Winters, this is serious. 1 wolf is a misdemeanor. 6. That's a federal felony. They're just trying to survive, Grace said, her voice breaking. I understand, but the law is clear. These animals must be confiscated. And then what? You kill them. They'll be evaluated. If deemed dangerous or non-releasable, yes, euthanasia is the protocol. They're not dangerous. Ghost saved my life. I saved hers. That's not how the law works. Fish and Wildlife brought in transport cages, 5 large crates. Officers approached Ghost, who immediately went protective, positioning herself between them and the puppies. She growled, teeth bared. We'll need to sedate her, Daniel said. Let me, Grace said. She trusts me. You're under arrest. You can't. If you want her in that cage without tranquilizers, which might kill her so soon after giving birth, you'll let me do it. Daniels considered, then nodded. We'll be watching. They removed Grace's cuffs temporarily. She descended to the basement, approaching Ghost slowly. Ghost's yellow eyes met hers. In them, Grace saw a question. Why, I'm sorry. Grace whispered, tears streaming. I'm so sorry, girl. She knelt beside Ghost. You have to go, but you'll be okay. You're a survivor. Grace stood, gently leading Ghost toward the cage. The wolf followed, trusting her even now. Grace opened the cage door. You have to go in. Ghost looked at the cage, then at Grace, back to the cage. Then she entered. Grace closed the door. The metallic click was the worst sound she'd ever heard. I love you, Grace whispered. Sam loved you. We'll find a way. The puppies were loaded into separate cages, all of them whimpering. Hope and Faith cried for their mother. The newborns mewled weakly. Grace watched, handcuffed again as the cages were carried out and loaded onto the truck. Ghost howled a long, mournful sound that tore through Grace's heart. The sound echoed across the frozen wilderness as the truck drove away, carrying Ghost and her babies to an uncertain fate. Grace stood in the snow, watching until the taillights disappeared. Sarah put an arm around her. Grace, I failed, Grace said numbly. I failed Sam. I failed Ghost. I failed everyone. Marcus's phone buzzed. He read the message, his face going pale. What is it? James asked. Marcus looked at Grace. Fish and Wildlife. They've scheduled Ghost for evaluation. If she's deemed non-releasable. When Grace's voice was hollow. December 20th, 2 days. And the verdict, Marcus swallowed hard. Given that she's habituated to humans and can't be safely released into the wild, the recommendation is, he couldn't finish. Grace did. Euthanasia. Yes. Ghost and all 5 pups. They're scheduled to be put down together. Grace stood in the snow, watching where the truck had disappeared. Behind her, her friends waited helplessly. Above, the northern lights began to dance across the pre-dawn sky, beautiful and indifferent to the human tragedy below. 48 hours, Grace whispered. She has 48 hours to live. The weight of failure pressed down on her like the cold itself. She'd survived Vietnam, Bobby's death, Sam's disappearance, but this watching Ghost being taken to die, this might finally break her, unless she found a way to fight. One more time. December 5th, 9:00 a.m., Anchorage Federal Holding Facility. Grace sat alone in a concrete cell, handcuffed to a metal bench. The charges were severe federal wildlife trafficking, a felony carrying up to 5 years in prison, and a $250,000 fine. Bail was set at $50,000. Grace had $340 to her name. Her frostbitten fingers had turned black stage 3 frostbite. The doctor who'd examined her said she might lose 2 fingers. Grace didn't care. Her hands were the least of her problems. The cancer was worsening. She'd been coughing blood all morning. The 30 pills were gone, without treatment. She had weeks, maybe days. Marcus visited during his lunch break. "Grace, I'm so sorry. Where are they? Where's Ghost? Fish and Wildlife Quarantine Facility, downtown. Are they okay?" Marcus hesitated for now. "But they've scheduled the evaluation." "What does that mean?" "If they determine the wolves can't be rehabilitated to the wild, they'll euthanize within 72 hours. Grace lunged forward against her restraints. "No, no, I didn't save them to die in a cage. Grace, Marcus, please, there has to be something. The video, release Sam's video, show what Jack did, create public sympathy. Agent Rivera says the video is evidence in Jack's trial. Can't release it yet. Then Ghost dies. And it's all for nothing." Marcus looked at his hands. "I talked to a lawyer about your case. It's not good. Grace, federal charges, clear evidence. You're looking at prison time. I don't care about me. Save Ghost, please." "I don't know how." After Marcus left, Grace sat alone in the silence of her cell. The concrete walls seemed to close in. She thought about Bobby, about Sam, about everyone she'd failed to save. At the Fish and Wildlife Quarantine Facility, Ghost lay in an 8x8 metal cage. Concrete floor, no bedding. The puppies were in a separate cage 20 feet away. Ghost could hear them crying, but couldn't reach them. She howled constantly, trying to call to them. The sound disturbed the other animals in the facility. A staff member injected sedatives. "Quiet her down. She's stressing everything else." Dr. Ellen Parks, the facility veterinarian, examined Ghost on December 25th afternoon. Physically, Ghost was healthy despite the leg injury. But behaviorally, the assessment was grim. Extremely agitated, Dr. Parks wrote in her report, aggressive toward handlers. Recommendation non-releasable. The facility director read the report. Standard protocol. Schedule euthanasia. "Sir, she's just stressed, separated from her pups. She's also habituated to humans, can't be released. She'd approach people. That's dangerous." "What about sanctuary placement?" "Sanctuaries are full. We don't have time or resources to search. Euthanasia is the humane option." The schedule was set December 27th. Lethal injection for Ghost. Hope and Faith were deemed potentially dangerous due to their age and exposure to humans. The 3 newborns were classified as non-viable without mother. All 6 animals were scheduled to die together. By the 2nd day in captivity, Ghost had stopped eating. She'd stopped howling. She lay in the corner of her cage, staring at nothing. Staff notes read, "Animal appears to have lost will to live." December 26th, 2 a.m. Grace lay on the thin mattress in her cell, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't sleep. Coughing fits racked her body. She knew the cancer was winning. The despair was crushing. "I failed Bobby. Couldn't save him from himself. I failed Sam. Couldn't protect him from Jack. Now I've failed the Ghost. She trusted me, and I led her to execution." Grace looked at the thin sheet on her bed. She could tear it, fashion it into a noose. End it now. Easier than cancer. Easier than living with this guilt. She started tearing the sheet into strips. Then she heard a voice, Sam's voice, clear as if he were in the cell with her. "Mom, you don't give up. You never give up." Grace's hands stopped. "Sam, you taught me that. When Dad died, you kept going. For me, I wasn't strong. I was running. No, you were surviving, and you'll survive this." "But Ghost won't. The pups won't." "Then fight. One more time. For them, for me." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You're Grace Elizabeth Winters. You survived Vietnam. You survived losing everyone. You're the strongest person I know." The voice faded. Grace was alone again. But something had shifted. The sheet strips fell from her hands. "Okay," she whispered. "One more fight. For Sam. For Ghost." She called the guard. "I need to make a phone call. It's 2 in the morning. I have a right to legal counsel." "Who are you calling?" "The media. Every news station in Alaska." "That's not legal counsel. First Amendment, freedom of the press. You want a lawsuit?" The guard sighed. "Fine. 5 minutes." Grace called the Anchorage Daily News. "I have a story. Vietnam veteran arrested for saving wolf that witnessed her son's murder." The reporter sounded skeptical. "Ma'am, this sounds like I have video evidence. The FBI has it. Jackson Crowley, wildlife trafficking. My son was Samuel Winters? Look it up." A pause. Typing sounds. "Sam Winters. I remember that case. 20's a missing researcher. Not missing. Murdered. And the wolf he died protecting is scheduled to be killed in 36 hours. I'm listening." The article published online at 10 a.m. on December 26th. The headline read, "Dying veteran faces prison for saving wolf her son died to protect." Within 2 hours, it had 50,000 shares on social media. By noon, hashtags were trending: Save Ghost, Free Grace Winters, Justice for Sam. The public response was immediate and fierce. Outrage at Fish and Wildlife, support for Grace, wildlife conservation groups, veterans organizations, animal rights activists, all demanding intervention. By afternoon, local TV news crews were at the jail. Sarah Chen was interviewed. "Grace Winters is a hero. She saved more lives than most of us ever will." Marcus Grant. "Sam Winters was a good man. He died protecting Ghost. That was his final wish." Dr. James Russell. "This wolf has shown extraordinary intelligence. She deserves study, not execution." By evening, the story had gone national. International outlets picked it up. Canadian news, "American vet faces prison for mercy." European media, U.S. wildlife policy under fire. The conservation community rallied. Petitions circulated. Phone calls flooded fish and wildlife offices. Grace had created a firestorm, and she was just getting started. December 20, 2:00 p.m. Special Agent Rivera returned to Grace's cell. His expression was unreadable. "Mrs. Winters, you've created quite a mess." "Good. I want a mess. I want everyone to know what's happening. You realize this media circus jeopardizes Jack's trial. Defense attorneys will claim we can't get an impartial jury. I don't care. Ghost is going to die tomorrow. Sam's death meant nothing if she dies." Rivera pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "What if I told you we have a solution?" Grace's heart raced. "I'm listening." FBI can intervene in Fish and Wildlife's decision. We can claim Ghost as material evidence in our case against Crowley. Is she? The collar camera footage was recorded from her perspective. She was present during Sam's murder. Technically, yes, she's a witness. What does that mean? We place Ghost in protective custody indefinitely until Jack's trial concludes and all appeals are exhausted. And after the trial, Rivera's pause told her everything. That's unclear, so you're buying time, not saving her. It's the best I can offer right now. Grace leaned forward. What's the catch? You testify against Jack, full cooperation, grand jury, preliminary hearings, trial, everything. I was going to do that anyway. And you plead guilty to the wildlife possession charge. We recommend suspended sentence, probation instead of prison. What about Ghost after the trial ends? Fish and Wildlife still has jurisdiction, but with public pressure like this, they might agree to sanctuary placement instead of euthanasia. Might. It's the best I can offer. Grace. Grace closed her eyes. It wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough. But it was something. What happens to the puppies? Rivera's silence was answer enough. The hybrids, Grace said flatly. The law's very clear on hybrids. I'm sorry. I can't promise anything for them. They're Sam's legacy. I know. If I refuse your deal, Ghost dies tomorrow. The puppies die. You go to prison for 5 years and die there from cancer. Grace sat in silence for a long moment. The weight of impossible choices pressed down on her. I want one thing, she finally said. What? I want to see her before she's transferred one last time. That's against protocol. That's my price. You let me see Ghost one more time, or there's no deal. Rivera sighed, rubbed his face. I'll arrange it. At 6:00 p.m., Grace was escorted to the Fish and Wildlife Quarantine Facility, handcuffed, flanked by Rivera and 2 guards. They led her through sterile corridors, lined with cages containing various animals, injured eagles, orphaned bear cubs, confiscated exotic pets. Then Grace heard it. Ghost's howl, weak but unmistakable. That's her, Grace said. They turned a corner. Ghost's cage was at the end of the row. The wolf lay with her head on her paws, eyes empty and glazed. When Grace called her name, Ghost's ears perked. She stood slowly, limped to the front of the cage. Her injured leg was healing but still caused a pronounced limp. Ghost pressed her nose through the bars, whimpering. Uncuff me, Grace said. That's against protocol, Rivera replied. She's terrified. If I'm cuffed, she'll think I'm a threat. Uncuff me, or this visit is pointless. Rivera nodded to the guards. They removed the handcuffs. Grace knelt at the cage, reaching through the bars to touch Ghost's nose. Hey, girl. Hey, sweet girl. Ghost's tail wagged for the first time in 2 days. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let them take you. Grace scratched behind Ghost's ears. The wolf leaned into the touch, eyes closing. Listen to me. You're going to be okay. You're going somewhere safe. Ghost tilted her head, those intelligent yellow eyes studying Grace's face. You won't be in this cage much longer, I promise. Ghost pressed harder against the bars, trying to get closer. Grace wished she could open the cage, hold Ghost one more time, but the guards watched every move. Where are the pups? Grace asked. Rivera pointed to an adjacent room. Through there. Can I see them? Rivera hesitated, then nodded. They led Grace to the puppy room. 5 pups in a large shared enclosure. Hope and Faith recognized Grace immediately, yipping excitedly and pressing against the mesh. The 3 newborns slept in a pile, peaceful and unaware of their scheduled execution. Grace put her hand against the mesh. The puppies licked her fingers through the gap. "They're beautiful," Grace whispered. "Time's up," one of the guards said. Grace returned to Ghost's cage. "I have to go now," Ghost whimpered, understanding somehow. "But you'll see me again, I promise. You're a survivor, Ghost, like Sam, like me." Grace stood to leave. Ghost howled long, mournful, heartbroken. Grace stopped, looked back. "I love you too." Back in her cell at 9:00 p.m., Grace sat alone with her thoughts. Tomorrow was the arraignment, the plea deal, 2 days until Jack's preliminary hearing, 1 week until she'd be released on probation. But Ghost. The puppies. Their futures remained uncertain. A guard appeared. "Miss Winters, you have a visitor. Says it's urgent." "Who?" "Dr. William Thorne, Wildlife Foundation." Grace frowned. "Never heard of him." "He's insistent. Says it's about Ghost." They led Grace to the visitor's room. An older man sat waiting, maybe 65, silver hair, kind eyes, wearing a wool sweater with a wolf emblem embroidered on the chest. He stood when Grace entered. "Mrs. Winters, I'm Dr. William Thorne." "I don't know you." "No, but I knew your son. Sam visited my wolf sanctuary in Montana in 20. Brilliant young man. He told me about Ghost back then. Said she was special." Grace's breath caught. "Sam knew you. We were colleagues in the conservation community. When Sam disappeared, I funded part of the search operation, filed missing person reports. I tried to help. I never knew. Sam kept his circle small, but he trusted me. And now I want to honor his memory." "How?" Thorne leaned forward. "I run a wolf sanctuary in Montana, 500 acres of protected wilderness. We have space for Ghost and all 5 puppies. I can provide lifetime care." Grace felt hope flare in her chest, painful and bright. "Why would you do this?" "Because Sam asked me to 4 years ago. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd protect Ghost. I've been looking for her ever since." "You can really take them, all 6. I have all the necessary federal and state permits. Licensed sanctuary. I can legally house wolves and wolf-dog hybrids. Montana law is more lenient than Alaska's." "What about the FBI's protective custody order?" "I've already filed a petition for custodial transfer. If the FBI approves, Ghost transfers to my care within 48 hours. After Jack's trial concludes, she stays permanently." "And the puppies?" "The hybrids are tricky, but Montana grants exceptions for licensed sanctuaries. With proper permits, I can keep all 5. "How soon can this happen?" "If Rivera signs off tonight, we could transfer them by December 28th. Grace's hands trembled. "They'll live, really live. Not just survive in a cage, but actually live. Free range on 50 acres of forest, natural habitat, streams, dens, other wolves nearby, but separate territories. Ghost will teach her pups to hunt, to be wolves." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "Can I visit them?" Thorne smiled. Anytime you want. In fact, I'd like to offer you a position. Volunteer coordinator, room and board included. You could live at the sanctuary. I'm dying. Cancer. Then spend your last months somewhere beautiful with Ghost, doing what Sam loved. Meg Grace sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs of relief and grief and exhausted hope. Yes, yes, thank you, thank you. Thorne reached across the table, took her hand. Sam saved my life once, metaphorically speaking. His research helped us understand wolf pack dynamics, saved our entire program. This is the least I can do. After Thorne left, Grace sat alone in the visitor's room. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel something other than despair. Agent Rivera appeared in the doorway. I heard about Thorne's offer. Will you approve it? I've reviewed his credentials. Everything checks out. He's legitimate. So, I'll sign the transfer order tonight. Ghost and the pups moved to Montana on December 12th. Grace closed her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the 50,000 people who called our office today demanding we save her. Yes, December 28th arrived cold and clear. Grace had been arraigned, entered her guilty plea, and received a suspended sentence with 2 years probation. She was released from custody. Jackson Crowley's preliminary hearing happened the same day. He pled guilty to all charges, 2 counts of murder, 47 counts of wildlife trafficking, racketeering. He faced life in prison without possibility of parole. When the judge allowed him a statement, Jack spoke through tears. I want to apologize to Grace Winters, to the families of Sam Winters and John Chen, to every wolf I killed. I thought I was protecting people, but I was just broken. My daughter Emma loved animals. She'd be ashamed of me. I deserve whatever punishment I get. I just hope somehow that the wolf I was hunting gets to live. Ghost deserves to live. Sam Winters died protecting her. Let his death mean something. Grace sat in the courtroom, watching. She felt no forgiveness, but she understood him, understood how grief could twist into something monstrous. Fish and Wildlife held a press conference that afternoon. Given the extraordinary public interest in Doc Thorne's reputable sanctuary offer, we're approving the transfer of all 6 animals to Montana Wolf Sanctuary, a reporter asked. What about the fact that 3 are hybrids? Montana has granted a special exemption. This outcome serves both animal welfare and public interest. At 3:00 p.m., Grace stood in the parking lot of Fish and Wildlife as Ghost, and the 5 puppies were loaded into a custom transport vehicle, spacious, climate-controlled, comfortable. Dr. Thorne supervised the loading personally. Ghost was calm now, no longer fighting. Somehow, she seemed to understand this was different. Grace approached the transport one last time before they left. Ghost pressed against the bars. You're going home, girl, real home. Forest and sky and freedom. Grace reached through, scratching Ghost's ears. I'll see you in a few days, at the sanctuary, I promise. Ghost licked Grace's hand, her rough tongue warm. Sam would be so proud of you. The convoy departed a transport truck, Grace's pickup truck with Sarah driving, 2 news vans following, a 14-hour drive to Montana. They arrived at Wolf Haven Sanctuary the next morning, January the 3rd, 500 acres of pristine Montana wilderness, mountains, forests, streams, heaven for wolves, Ghost's territory was a 50-acre enclosure, not a cage, but a vast space with natural terrain. When the transport gate opened, Ghost emerged slowly. She stood at the threshold, seeing trees and open sky. She hesitated. "Go on, girl," Grace said softly. "It's yours." Ghost took her first steps into freedom, then broke into a run, full sprint, leaping over logs, racing through snow. The puppies tumbled after her, yipping with joy. Grace watched through Taraz. "Sam, you'd love this." June 20. 6 months after Ghost arrived at Wolf Haven Sanctuary. Grace Elizabeth Winters sat on the porch of her small cabin on the sanctuary grounds. The Montana summer was warm, the air filled with birds' talk and the distant sound of a stream. Grace had taken Dr. Thorne's offer. She lived here now, volunteering with educational tours, helping with feeding schedules, doing what little her failing body still allowed. The cancer was progressing, slower than expected, but inevitable. She declined all treatment. What was the point? She was 70 years old, had lived longer than Bobby, longer than Sam. She'd done what she came to do. Ghost was thriving. The white wolf had gained healthy weight, her coat gleaming in the sunlight. The injured leg had healed, with only a slight limp remaining. She moved through her territory with confidence, teaching her 5 adolescent pups everything a wolf needed to know. Hope had grown largest, the dominant one, always first to investigate anything new. Faith remained smaller, but had become the pack scout, clever and cautious, using intelligence over strength. The 3 younger ones, whom the staff had named Sam, Bobby, and Grace Jr., formed their own subgroup, learning from their older siblings. Every morning at dawn, Grace walked to Ghost's enclosure fence, just a chain-link barrier, waist-high. Ghost could easily jump it if she wanted, but she never did. Ghost would approach from wherever she'd spent the night, trotting across the meadow to meet Grace at the same spot. They'd sit on opposite sides of the fence for 20 minutes. No words needed, just presence. Grace would talk sometimes about Sam, about Bobby, about Vietnam, about the 47 names that still haunted her dreams. Ghost would sit and listen, head tilted, those yellow eyes understanding something beyond language. "You saved me," Grace told her one morning in mid-June. "I thought I was saving you, but you saved me." Ghost's tail wagged once. Grace kept a journal now, writing when her hands weren't too stiff. June 15th entry. "I've spent 35 years running from guilt. Bobby's death, Sam's death, Vietnam, all those lives I took and couldn't save. But Ghost taught me something. Survival isn't about forgetting pain. It's about carrying it with purpose. I'll die soon. Doctors say weeks, maybe days, but I'll die knowing I saved something beautiful. Sam, if you're watching, I finally got it right." July 4th, 2020, Independence Day. Grace woke feeling weaker than usual. She couldn't get out of bed without help. The hospice nurse, who visited twice weekly, was there within an hour. Sarah had driven up from Alaska to visit. Marcus came when he could. James was conducting research at the sanctuary, studying Ghost's pack dynamics for a book he was writing. They all gathered in Grace's small cabin that morning. Everyone knew Grace was dying. "I want to see her," Grace said, her voice barely above a whisper. "One more time." The nurse shook her head. "Grace, you can't walk? Then carry me. Okay, please. Don't let me die without saying goodbye." Sarah wiped her eyes. Marcus nodded to Dr. Thorne, who brought a wheelchair with thick blankets. They bundled Grace against the cool morning air and wheeled her to Ghost's enclosure. Ghost appeared immediately. Sensing something was wrong, she approached the fence and pressed her entire body against it, whimpering. Grace reached through with trembling hands, touching Ghost's face. "Hey, girl, hey, Ghost." Ghost licked Grace's hand repeatedly, frantically almost, as if trying to keep her here through sheer will. "I'm leaving soon," Grace said softly, "going where Bobby and Sam are. But you stay. You live. You teach your babies to be strong." Grace's breathing was labored. Each word cost her, "Thank you for trusting me, for letting me matter again, for giving me a reason to wake up every morning these past 6 months." Ghost's whimper became a howl, soft at first, then building. The other wolves in the sanctuary joined in, 12 adult wolves across different territories, all howling together, a chorus of mourning for a woman they'd never met, but whose death their alpha female was grieving. Grace smiled through her tears. "They're singing for me, Sam, Bobby. I'm coming home." She took one more breath, looking into Ghost's eyes, those yellow eyes that had seen so much pain, so much death, but had chosen to trust one more time. "Thank you for being my redemption," Grace whispered. Her eyes closed. Her hand went limp. The time was 11:47 a.m., the exact time Bobby had died 35 years ago. Ghost went silent. She bowed her head against the fence, staying there motionless as Sarah sobbed and Marcus held her. James stood with his hand on Dr. Thorne's shoulder, both men crying. Grace Elizabeth Winters was cremated, according to her will. Her ashes were scattered in Ghost's enclosure, among the wild flowers that grew near the stream. A simple headstone was placed at the sanctuary's memorial garden. Grace Elizabeth Winters, 1950-2020. She saved the wolf. The wolf saved her. December 23.5 years later. Ghost was now 11 years old, elderly for a wolf. Her muzzle had grayed, and she moved more slowly. But her eyes remained sharp, intelligent, watching over her extended family. Hope, Faith, Samuelita, Bobby, and Grace Jr. were now adults. 3 had produced litters of their own. Ghost's legacy included 14 grandpuppies. The pack had grown to 20 wolves total, the sanctuary's largest and most successful breeding group. Every Christmas, the sanctuary held a memorial ceremony at Grace's stone. Sarah made the trip from Alaska. Marcus, now on the sanctuary's board of directors, was always there. James came to his book. Ghost, the Wolf Who Changed Everything, had become a bestseller, raising awareness about wolf conservation. They'd light a candle. Marcus would read from Sam's journal. James would share updates on conservation efforts inspired by Grace's story. Sarah would tell stories about Grace's stubborn courage, and Ghost would attend every year without fail. She'd leave her territory and sit at the memorial stone while humans gathered. The staff noticed Ghost's daily ritual. Every day at exactly 11:47 a.m., Ghost would go to Grace's memorial. She'd sit for 20 minutes, silent and still, a vigil, mourning. She remembers. Dot. Thorne would say, "Wolves don't forget." Christmas Eve 20, Marcus, Sarah, and James gathered at the memorial as usual. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, making everything pristine and white. At 11:40 a.m., Ghost appeared, moving slowly through the snow to her usual spot, But today was different. Ghost began digging at the base of the memorial stone. Her paws worked steadily, clearing snow and frozen earth. "What's she doing?" Sarah asked. They watched as Ghost uncovered something, a small, waterproof metal box, buried shallow. Had Grace buried it? Had Dr. Thorne? No one knew. Thorne carefully retrieved the box. Inside was a USB drive wrapped in plastic. They took it to the sanctuary office. The drive contained one video file, dated July 3rd, 2020, the day before Grace died. James clicked play. Grace appeared on screen, lying in bed. Clearly very weak, but smiling. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. Good. I've been ready. I wanted to leave you all with something. Not sadness, but hope. Ghost Tovier var med 3 gifts: purpose, redemption, and proof that love doesn't need words. She loved Sam. She loves her pups. And somehow, miraculously, she loved a broken old woman who didn't deserve it." Grace coughed, wincing. "Take care of her. Take care of them all. And remember, the wildest hearts often understand us best." And she looked off camera, smiled. "Hey, girl, come here." The sound of paws on the wooden floor. Ghost entered the frame. This was before her enclosure was completed, when she'd still been in medical observation and had occasionally been allowed to visit Grace's cabin. Ghost placed her head on Grace's bed. Grace petted her with shaking hands. Grace looked back at the camera. "See, miracles are real. Sometimes they have fur and yellow eyes," she continued. "To everyone watching this someday, don't give up on the broken things, the wounded things. Sometimes they're the ones who save you. I learned that too late in life, but I learned it. Sam knew it all along. Bobby, Sam, I'll see you soon. Ghost. Thank you for teaching an old soldier how to live again." The screen faded to black. In the office, all 3 visitors were crying. Outside, through the window, they could see Ghost sitting at the memorial stone. The winter sun cast golden light across the snow. 5 grandpuppies played around her, tumbling and wrestling, full of life. Ghost watched them, content. Then she lifted her head and howled, not in grief, but in something that sounded almost like joy. The other wolves joined, their voices carrying across the Montana wilderness. The text appeared on the screen, based on true stories of human-animal bonds. The illegal wildlife trade continues. So does the fight to stop it, in memory of all who died protecting what they loved. The final image showed Ghost silhouetted against the setting sun, surrounded by her family, free and wild and alive. The miracle wasn't just that Grace saved Ghost. The miracle was that Ghost saved Grace right back. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in fur and yellow eyes. Grace Winters spent 35 years carrying guilt for the husband she couldn't save, the son she lost, the lives she took in war. She was dying, alone, with nothing but regrets and a foreclosure notice. Then, on the coldest night of her life, she heard a cry in the blizzard, a white wolf caught in a trap, her dead son's last wish. Grace could have stayed inside, saved herself. Instead, she carried that 100-pound wolf 2 miles through deadly snow. 68 years old, dying of cancer, frostbitten fingers. But she refused to give up, because sometimes redemption doesn't look like we expect. Sometimes It has four legs and asks us to be brave one more time. Ghost didn't just survive because of Grace. Grace survived because of Ghost. They saved each other. This story reminds us that it's never too late to matter. Never too late to fight for something pure. Never too late to find purpose in protecting the broken and beautiful things of this world. What would you risk everything to save? Have you ever experienced an unexpected connection that changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. Let's honor those who taught us that love transcends words.